Well, there you have it from the Red Chamber. Now, we caught up with the Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Air Force and lawmaker representing Abia Central, Senator Austin Akobundu. You'll be speaking on why the senators rejected move to immortalize Humphrey Nwosu. Take a listen.
I was very disappointed. Not upset, but disappointed.
Why do you think the lawmakers voted the way they did? Say, in as much as if it came the first day, we thought probably the second day when it comes, maybe they will look at it again and decide to. Why did you think they voted the way they did? Was it politically motivated?
Well, all of us are senators of the Federal Republic, but you can't take away the fact that there are different tendencies, different political leanings, different motivations for whatever decisions at any given time that we'll be taking.
Okay.
So all these put together could have accounted for that. I don't want to fall into the temptation of saying there were regional, ethnic,
Biases, yeah.
and political biases in the way some of our colleagues spoke. Some of them also spoke as if they were under certain instructions, to even when the truth was so clear.
But some people say what Humphrey Nwosu did was not really significant enough to deserve, him being honored. I listened to Senator Yai where he said that when you want to talk about elections, we have, after voting, the election result must be announced, which Humphrey Nwosu failed to announce. That is not enough, for him to be honored. Do you agree with him?
That, as far as I'm concerned, fell and still falls within the realm of distortion of narrative. For you to understand the role Humphrey Nwosu played, you have to go back to history. Some of them were very young. I was in service in uniform, and I was very visible, and I understood and aware politically, even though I was apolitical. Clearly, the role Humphrey Nwosu from the beginning of that episode to the time the election was annulled. How will you accuse a man that started a process, that midwives the process, came up with a formula that up to today has not been assailed in terms of election conduct and management, option A4, a man that stood his ground in the face of a military government headed by very strong generals at the time, for whatever reasons that wanted the elections stopped, a man that also tried to overcome legal challenges by also displaying knowledge of what was expected of him and the body to do after the process has started. Remember Justice Ikpeme's judgment to stop, or injunction or whatever, to stop the election. Professor Nwosu stood against that, citing that it was against the law for any court to stop an electoral process that had already commenced. How could some of our colleagues indicted or accused Humphrey Nwosu of not doing a good job? A man that conducted the best, up to today, the best results that nobody has been able to contradict. Out of 30 results, 29 were released before he was summoned to the seat of government and never came back. And the only state left was Taraba. And even as he was leaving, I think Osita Izunaso, our distinguished senator and leader, captured it aptly. He left instructions that result should be released. But he never came back to his seat. The interplay of forces, interests led to the annulment of that result. In any case, the results were clearly documented. Nobody has up to now questioned or contradicted the authenticity of those results. How will you accuse a man under whose headship, through his efforts, Abiola's election was validated, courtesy of those results? In any case, if you recall, I challenged Senator Shomole, who said that until his death, he never rose up to defend his actions. Prof. Nwosu captured everything that happened, fully encapsulated in his book, Laying the Foundation. It was all about June 12th in 1993. Well detailed, including the results. Like I said, thanks to the decision of the former president, President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who owned up, to his mistake, further validating the victory of Chief MKO Abiola. And everything about the struggle about NADECO was founded on that annulment. Why was there an annulment? That annulment was seen as injustice, but because an election was duly conducted and results documented, and yet the results were annulled. The election was annulled, rather, and the winner was denied the opportunity of becoming the president. Just like Abiola is our hero, the man that started and almost concluded the exercise, that gave him victory, remains a hero in the minds of most of us. And I'm sure most Nigerians feel the same. You can't talk about June 12th. You can't talk about NADECO, the role they played, their activism that hastened the exit of the military. You can't talk about the victory of MK Abiola. You can't talk about the validation, of his election results without making due and copious references to the role Humphrey Nwosu and his team played. This is where I stand.
I know you have countered Senator Oshomole that he was not able to speak his truth before his death, and you've said that he had written a book about all of these. But how much awareness, did people see, that book before he eventually laid down his life? But let me talk a bit about some of the arguments out there that since the federal have failed to do the needful honoring him, probably the Southeast should have come up together, name a monument, or even honor him before coming to the national to seek for this. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Humphrey Nwosu must not be reduced to a regional champion. Humphrey Nwosu sacrificially served this country. Humphrey Nwosu was a Nigerian leader. Humphrey Nwosu was a Nigerian fighter who fought for the post-military enthronement of democracy. And in our hearts, he remains so. But let me tell you what is important in what we have done. What we have done at the floor of the Senate is to bring everything that happened, the role in pre-June 12th and post-June 12th to the consciousness of Nigerians. Those who didn't know, going forward, will know. So it is not about Southeast. Leave that. We will not reduce him. And I will not, I'm speaking my opinion, and I'm sure I share the same views with some of my colleagues and other leaders that Humphrey Nwosu did not labor and die as a regional champion. He died for Nigeria, and he remains so in our hearts.
But sir, the grouse now is that the election result was not announced. That if he had the boldness, to challenge the military, to go ahead, even when he was told not to, hold the election, he went ahead and held this election. That even before he was summoned, probably he would have, done the consequences, announced the result, and even faced the bullets.
Well, the election had not been fully concluded. Probably that's where the indictment would have come. Some Nigerians would have said that he announced a result that was not fully concluded, 29 out of 30, and he was summoned. Would he have announced the result while he was held hostage and incommunicado from wherever the military authorities and the leadership of the government kept him? Would he have done that? I think assessing him from that prison is like, doing so from an extreme perspective. What is important is, did he conduct
The
a
election.
credible election? If the answer is yes, does he deserve to be acknowledged for doing so? Was Abiola's election validated by virtue of the results he announced and documented? The answer is yes. Did the former president, own up to his mistakes and confirmed that Abiola won the election? If Abiola won the election, what indices, what figures, and from what records?
Humphrey Nwosu's records.
Humphrey Nwosu's records. Humphrey Nwosu's activities as documented. Nobody has contradicted that, and it has remained unassailable. And they are factual, and they are there. But let me tell you that what has started is about history beckoning. It's for our children. Whether Professor Nwosu is honored today or not, this whole saga has now provided a major platform for historians, for our children. So it's not going to die as early
But the
as
thing
most
is,
of you.
why do you think the blame is not going on the person who annulled that election? Why do you think the blame is on Humphrey?
Well, that was why I said that there was a distortion of narrative, because that should have been the issue. And if you have honored the active players who did the annulment, some of our senior colleagues in uniform, if you have honored them posthumously, so why will you not honor the man that did a damn good job? Why?
Are there lessons you think we can learn from this?
I already said it, that it will remain. In fact, this is the commencement of a process through which historians will have a peep into what actually happened and set the records straight for our children. Not only um, for Humphrey Nwosu, but also for our children to understand what honor it's all about.